I'm a big fan of the old BMW motorcycles. BMW Motorrad was founded in 1923, and back then you could have it in any color as long as it was black, with those iconic white pinstriping which were applied by hand. Now that is so BMW classic and evergreen, because even in 2020 when BMW Motorrad launched the R18, and with the first edition, they were all black with the white pinstriping, and that pinstriping was still applied by hand. Very iconic, harking back to the old days. Now, I bought one of those first edition R18s for my Route 21 garage collection. I also have a 90-year anniversary, the R90 in my collection, the Heritage, and I added the white pinstriping to that petrol tank. I also did a review on that, and I'll add them at the end of the episode so you can have a look at those. Now, in this episode, I wanted to have a look at a very important bike, also classic bike, the bike behind me here. I haven't looked at classic and vintage bikes in quite a while, and this bike here in front of me being the BMW R100S. This bike's predecessor, the R90S, designed by Hans Muth, is accredited as one of those bikes that helped BMW Motorrad survive and not go into liquidation through the troubled early 70s. I'm going to start the story off with a gentleman's name by the name of Hans Muth. Hans Muth at the time was a designer for BMW motor cars, designing interiors. Now in the early 70s he was persuaded to join BMW Motorrad, and that was a very difficult time for motorcycle sales worldwide, because motorcycle sales had slumped and BMW Motorrad management were deciding whether to continue or to call it the day. Now this is the perfect timing. Hans Muth designed and launched in 1973 the legendary R90S, and that is one of the bikes that is accredited to saving BMW Motorrad. Hans Muth then went on to design the first GS for BMW, the Gelände-Sport, or Gentleman Scrambler, and it was his brainchild. Hans Muth then later left BMW and designed the very iconic Suzuki Katana. Now, more about this story. The R90, this bike's predecessor, was produced from 1973 to 1976. Then in 76, the facelift and the upgrade to the BMW R100S. Total production of the R100S was 9,657 and produced between 1976 to 1980. The cost of one of these was 10,190 Deutschmarks, which was a huge amount of money. You're talking about just over 5,000 euros today. Now, the R100 series was launched in 1976, was produced in various guises like the R100, R100S, R100RS, and so forth, and they ran from 1976 to 1980. Then there was a pause in production from 1980, and that came due to marketing pressures, environmental pressures, BMW looking at liquid-cooled motors. However, protests by customers and dealers forced BMW to resume production, and it restarted in 1985, and the R100 series, the 980cc motor, the series in obviously facelifted and revised versions, ran from 1985 all the way to 1996. So as you can see, R100's 980cc motor ran from 1976 all the way to 1996, 20-year lifespan. Some interesting facts of the BMW R100 series. Being launched in 1976, from inception, they all got dual disc brakes up front. Now, in 1976, that was market leading. The 76 models were all launched with the spoked wheels front and rear, but from the 78 model year, 1978, so production started in September of 77, they got these cast aluminium rims, which they call the snowflake design. With the R100S, the step up from the R90S, you no longer got the special livery of the silver smoke or the Daytona orange. And another fact would be, in 76, the R100s were launched with a drum brake at the back, and as you can see, this bike has a disc brake at the back and the calipers are Brembo. Now that was an upgrade again for the 1978 model year, and production of that started in September of 77. So you're looking at a bike here, the one in front of me is a 1979 model, but from 1978 you had aluminium cast mag wheels, dual disc up front for braking, a disc at the back with Brembo calipers, really exclusive, premium, top quality and cutting edge design, a really stunning bike. And maybe that's why it warranted that hefty price tag of 5,000 euros back in the day. Just before I go for my ride, let's have a look at the specs. You're talking about this block. Have a look at this. Doesn't this look like it comes out of an aircraft? And really you can see where the R18 engine comes from. It looks very reminiscent of this. This motor is a 980cc two-cylinder boxer four-stroke air-cooled motor, and depending what literature you read, it's between 66 and 70 horsepower, which is between 48 and 51 kilowatts at 6,600 RPMs. Max torque 76 Newton meters at 6,000 RPMs. Two Bing carburetors, as you can see here, dry single plate clutch, 5-speed gearbox, and traditional BMW shaft drive to the rear. Wheels, as mentioned earlier, die-cast aluminium wheels front and rear with the snowflake pattern, as they called it. The sizes 19-inch front, 18-inch back, brakes up front, dual disc of 260mm with 2-piston calipers either side. At the back, a 200mm disc with Brembo brakes, single. Suspension front is a hydraulic telescopic, dual adjustable shock at the back. Weight of this bike is 237 kilograms, quite heavy. Fuel capacity 23.8 liters. Seat height 800 millimeters, and top speed was claimed at 189 kilometers per hour. Some people even said it hit the magical 200 kilometers per hour mark. From 1976 to 1980, total production 9,657, and interestingly, the quarter mile was claimed in 12.97 seconds, which was a proper time for those days, 1976. So without further ado, you can really see this was a premium motorcycle 5 decades ago. It had all the top quality things, from mag wheels to dual disc up front, disc at the back, shaft drive, really 1,000cc nearly motor. So let's go on and enjoy the ride. Some quirks about this R100S. Have a look at this key over here, tiny little key. It actually pivots and folds in by 90 degrees. Now, if you have a look, ignition sits right on the side over here. So if you put the key in, you can start it up and fold this down out the way. Next thing I noticed is that the rider foot pegs, have a look, left one and the right one. The left one sits slightly further forward than the right hand side. Right hand side is further back, and I think that is just the layout of the motor, gearbox, shaft drive, just how it fits. I don't think it would be too much of a problem. I don't know how that would feel after longer hours of riding, but an interesting quirk. Next thing, have a look at this dashboard. Stunning, analog and real classy, a clock in on top, built in on the fairing, showing you volts and time. This bike has 23,000 kilometers on it, and everything age appropriate. If you have a look at this, there's headlights, your kill switch on the side, your indicators sit down here. Super cool, can't wait. Let's go for that ride. Right, switching on, key, kill switch, lights on, let's go for it. a slight oversight of mine, I forgot to switch on the fuel taps. So first experience, already stopped next to the side of the road. It has 2 fuel taps either side on the petrol tank, and you have to switch them both on because each one feeds 1 carburetor for each pod. Now, first impressions of this bike, it is actually super comfortable. I'm sitting upright, the feet are mid-mounted and quite high up, so the thighs are just a little bit lower than horizontal to the ground, and handlebars are actually not clip-ons down facing, but they're also not wide, they're actually fairly narrow. They're quite close together if you look here. And if you're wondering why I'm revving so much, yes, I don't think the carburetors are set quite nicely. It doesn't feel like it's gonna idle, so I don't want it to stall. Another little thing here, the clock seems to be a little bit loose on the left hand side, but something that can be sorted out. So the clock and the carbs, I noticed very quickly, need a bit of attention, but I mean, that's the quirk with having a classic or a vintage. You're always tinkering a little bit. We forget how much work carburetor engines are. They're not like the fuel injection bikes. You're always tinkering, and there's a little bit of oil leaks and all of that. But this is not a retro classic. This is a true classic, something that is nearly 50 years old. This particular model in 1979, but the real dinkum deal. So takes a bit of getting used to. Carburetor, 66 horsepower. Yeah, it's not 200 horsepower. You don't have quick shifter, you don't have rider modes, no bragging rights on anything like that. But when it gets going, it really does get going, and the motor definitely does love revving. It feels great after 4,000 RPMs right through to 6,000 RPM. That's where max torque is. Max power is, I think, was it 6.7. So all round stunning. I'm enjoying the ride. The bike is floating quite nicely. I don't know if the seat or this bench seat is stock. It doesn't look like it, but it really well done seat. It's not too soft and spongy. The combination between the seat and the rear suspension, it floats, it's comfortable. Front suspension is very good. The most impressive thing on this bike would be your brakes. Really good stoppers. I mean, the back brake, those Brembos are proper, loving them. I've never used back brakes as much as on this bike. Front brakes really good as well. So it's the correct combination. You know, you don't want something with 200 horsepower that doesn't stop. You'd rather have less horsepower but good stopping power. So loving it. And I can see, you know, if you're talking 70s, you have a bike that is high tech, that is cutting edge in this bike, with mag wheels and disc brakes all around. 1000 cc. It's a proper piece of kit. The more I'm riding it, the more I'm actually enjoying it. It really does take some getting used to, you know. Carburetors, you don't have those 100 plenty horsepower on tap. Everything is cable operated, from your brake to your clutch to your throttle. No ride by wire. Really, it is old school. Compression is nice. If I drop a gear, you can really slow this puppy down with compression on this boxer motor. As you roll on, everything is cable operated. It's a little bit slower, a little bit more sluggish, but as you get used to it, you really get into it. And if you're an enthusiast like myself, I mean, this is what it's about. I wanted to ride this bike. I knew I was getting onto something that is 40 years old and older, and it's just overall interesting. You don't notice the foot pegs being offset, the right one further back than the left, only if you really think about it, so it's not uncomfortable in any way. My feet are flat on the ground, knees bent. Really stunning look. Dashboard is really classy with that clock top right pull off. Not too sluggish. I do think with carbs reset would be better, and I love the feel of this bike, sound of the bike as it gets past, like you see, 4,000 RPM. Sounds great, feels great. There's a lot of vibration, but nice vibrations coming through this boxer motor. Just an oral delight. It's stunning. And have a look at this bike. Tracks nicely all round. solid build quality, and that's what you come to expect of BMW. Here we can see a pull off again. As you can see, past 5,000 RPM. She is happy, she's singing. Have a look at that. Here we go. There's also quite a lot of twist on this throttle. Also not used to it. You're normally feathering a throttle if you have 200 horsepower. You're quite gentle. It takes some getting used to. Here you need to grab a handful. Overall, you need to ride this. You really need to ride this. This doesn't ride itself. No rider aids, no quick shifters. You are the boss. You got to ride this. With a downshift, nothing fancy. That boxer motor, huge compression. It will lock the back wheel if you change incorrectly at the wrong time. The brakes, stunning. You feel good on the bike. It takes some getting used to. You do feel the weight of this bike, but it handles beautifully, it tracks beautifully. The build quality for nearly 50 years, it's just great. So I think traffic, as you can see, can be done. Not most enjoyable, where the modern day bikes are better, but definitely a competent motorcycle. Thank you, sir. Competent motorcycle, you can do anything, and weekend warrior is what I would class this thing. Get up, just tinker, get the carbs right, and head out. And I think this bike would run like a Swiss watch forever and a day. Very relaxed riding style. I'm sitting upright, no pressure on the neck, lower back, arms, wrists, nothing. Pure concentration is where I'm feeling strain, because you really have to remember to grab a handful of the throttle, because it's not as sensitive as the ride-by-wire. The clutch is quite a hard feel to it. You have to open the throttle. The brakes, you don't have the sensitivity of brakes of today, and you must remember your indicators sit on the right hand side. Your yellow switch over here is your headlight. It's all very different to today's bikes. So the only strain I'm having on a first ride like this, until you make yourself familiar with a bike like this, would be brain. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with me, having a look, ride and review a 50-year-old motorcycle. Guys, if you enjoyed it, please remember, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up. Most important of all, guys, please hit that subscribe button to help me build a channel, and if you like, that reminder bell so you always know when I'm uploading new content.